Okay, awesome. So just to give an outline, so I'm going first of all to present so what the topic of today, then continue with basically what's social entrepreneurship, and then go on to give a presentation about you, Prashant, if that works with you. Or would
That's
you
perfect.
prefer talking about yourself a bit more?
Yeah, definitely. You can give an introduction and then I can also add on to it.
Add to it. Okay, that sounds perfect. All right, so welcome everyone to the first ever episode of our social entrepreneur series here with the Mariners Group. And today we are really glad to have Mr. Prashant Bagga with us. So welcome, Mr. Prashant. And
Thank you.
we'll be talking, no problem. And we'll be talking about the current problems that our world currently faces, especially in a pandemic case. Then also give a brief outline and description of what social entrepreneurship in general. And then in the end, we'll talk about some innovative ways that some communities and some groups around the world have found to solve the world's biggest issues. And today's format is going to be a bit different than what you encounter usually. It's going to take an interview format. So, we're always open to have questions, but it's going to be a bit more, let's say, personal between us and the speaker. So we are going to ask a bunch of questions, and Prashant is going to give his take on it, his opinions, what he thinks about it, etc. And but we're always going to have a Q&A session at the end. So really feel free to drop off your questions at any time of the show. So Mr. Baga, to begin with, he's currently a student, an international student actually, in honors nanotechnology engineering in the honors nanotechnology engineering co-op program. Oh, sorry, that was hard. At the University of Waterloo. Um, he's an outstanding entrepreneur who's launched a lot of social enterprises actually. First of all, he began with Strategy 2098, which it, it's more of a website about product management. Correct me um, if it's wrong. And it's basically a blog that aims to inform the population about product and strategy. And why 2098, as Mr. Baga said, to me, it was actually his 100 years milestone. So it's all his plan he has until he reaches that age. Then he wanted to take more concrete steps, I guess, and that's where the idea of billion shots came in. And it's basically a nonprofit accelerator for startups, and it aims at supporting the brightest minds around the world to help them solve the world's most pressing issues, like hunger and environmental issues, and poverty in general. But there's always more topics to it. And he, on the side, he also started a small community called Product Bites. I would say small. It grew up by a lot recent years, but it's basically just a community on Slack where people interact with each other and give insights or discuss about certain topics related with product management. So here's Mr. Baga, and welcome, and you can add on to anything I've just said.
Okay, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much, guys, for inviting me. Yeah, like exactly as you
Thank
said,
you.
I'm an international student from India. And yeah, like, when I was a kid, I was in 11th and 12th grade, I had no plans what to do. And what happened one day was one of my uncles who lived in Canada, he came back home and he just asked me that, Prashant, what do you want to do in future? And I'm like, I have no idea. And he turns to my dad and he's like, hey, send him to Waterloo to study nanotechnology. And that's it. Like for the next 1 year, I started planning the applications, the IELTS examination, and stuff like that. And and here I am, like University of Waterloo, nanotechnology engineering. I am in my senior year right now, and it's been an exciting journey. the biggest reason why I chose Waterloo was because of the co-op program. Because Waterloo provides you the opportunity to do 6 internships before graduating, which is around 2 years of experience, even before you have hit the full-time market. So I really wanted that. I really wanted to start working at this age. And I think the reason I chose Nano was simple. I thought it was cool. The applications of Nano were really cool. Nano materials, nano bots, nano chemicals. So all those things were really cool. Like, you can create a super light aeroplane using nanomaterial. You can solve cancer. You can cure cancer using nanobots. So these were all really cool applications. But I soon found that nanotechnology is not exactly what I see myself doing. It's pretty cool, but I don't see myself doing it. So that's where the entire exploration path started. And I first got into R&D engineering. I just cold emailed a bunch of startups. That's where I landed. Then I again cold emailed. I landed as a web developer. And then my goal was, okay, now I want a big brand. Just like any student, I want a big brand on my resume. So how do I optimize for that? What I did was I kind of scraped email addresses of every single Ivy League university professor who was doing research related to nanotechnology. And I just blasted an email that, hey, I would love to work with you. And that's how, in 2 days, I got a response from a professor at MIT. That was pretty exciting. That's where I learned the power of cold emailing.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then what happened was, like, a couple months down, I actually went back to school. Now, one day I'm just sitting in my room, and on my Facebook page, I see that, okay, Microsoft is hosting a hackathon on campus. And the winner of that hackathon will get an opportunity to win or land an internship. That got me pretty excited. So that's when I gathered my team. We built a chatbot. We won the hackathon. I got the interview, and I landed as a PM, as a product manager at Microsoft. I was 19. I was in Microsoft. That was a crazy time for me because, like, for an like if I can imagine, like, if I would be in India at 19, I wouldn't have an imagine of even writing a resume. I wouldn't even know what a resume was by then. But here I was at 19 at Microsoft. So that was a crazy experience for me. Now, when I got into Microsoft, this was the time when, because it was such a phenomenal experience, every day I was learning so much. I was around some really cool people. I started documenting my learnings on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn as my journal. So I would just, like, finish my day. I would come lie on my bed. I would just write a post on LinkedIn that, hey, this is what I learned today at Microsoft. And that's what blew my following up on LinkedIn. I went from 1,000 followers to 10K. And through that, I met even more people. I came across even more ideas. And it was all going great. I ended my internship at Microsoft for after 8 months. I fell in love with product management. I wanted to pursue product management. And now my goal was simple that, okay, now I need to be more technical, because the more technical become, the better product manager I will be. So that's when the entire journey of TPM started, technical product management started. And also, just to master my craft, I also started writing more on LinkedIn. And I wrote about product management, about business, about strategy. And that's how Strategy 2098 came about. And yeah, like, now I have met so many cool people. If I have an idea, I can shoot on LinkedIn. I connect with so many people. We brainstorm together. Eventually landed as a TPM at Lifion in New York City. That was amazing experience. I was in New York City earlier this year for 2 months, but after the COVID, I actually had to move back to India, to my home, because free food and no rent, that's the dream life of any student. So yeah, that's me. That's my spiel.
Wow, that's really, really awesome. That's really an interesting story to hear, Mr. Baga. I'm sure, not a lot of 19 years old lived through what you went through, especially in such a short span of time. But I was really curious. So you mentioned that so you didn't know what you wanted to do when you were young, right? Um, has it changed now? Are you sure you want to really focus on product management?
That's a good question. So as of now, I definitely think that I want to pursue product management for at least the next, at least until the time I don't change my mind. So I think forever as of now.
Okay.
But maybe there
Okay.
might be, I might meet some really cool hotshot investment banker and he would convince me to start investment banking. I don't know. But yeah, as of now,
Yeah.
I am down for product management. I'm really looking forward to gaining more experience.
Okay. Okay. That sounds really, really cool. And before that, you told us that, so you didn't really know what you wanted to do, but then your father kind of saw in a sort of light insight into, and he suggested nanotechnology. Why of all careers, like if I think of parents, usually they would want their kids maybe to become doctors or say engineers or lawyers. But why nanotechnology out of all things?
That's an amazing question. Wow, nobody has asked me that. So basically, first off, that was my mom's cousin sister's husband who was living in Toronto at that time, and he came down to my city in India, and he suggested that hey, send him to Waterloo to study nanotechnology. So I think I think he also found nanotechnology to be super cool, and that's the only reason why he suggested that. That there's no other reason because he didn't know my interests, he didn't know what I want to do, he just suggested that program just because it was cool. And I think that's a big point I always have whenever I go into interviews, because as soon as I mention that I study nano, people are excited. They are like, okay, what is this, tell me more about it. And when I drop some cool applications, like how nano silver could be put down in your sunscreen and make it antibacterial or fight bacteria, stuff like that. These are some really cool things that people want to talk more about. So, it helps me because it's cool.
Well, yeah, definitely I have to agree. Like nanotechnology is definitely something that's common and people are really, it sounds really fancy and I'm sure like a lot of people are really interested to know more about it. But it's really cool that you just listened to your father and just went with it because it sounded like something amazing. But I wanted to know, so now that you have a certain background in nanotechnology, do you think that it was much of a help in your product management career? And do you think like knowing more about nanotechnology could help create products that could solve, the world's largest issues at hand right now?
That's okay, Zexi. You're asking some really cool questions. So great job on that. I want to
It's like
mention, yeah,
sorry, really cool like like the field you studied in, so kind of made that connection. But yeah, anyways,
right,
continue.
right. So the fact that everything I studied or everything that got me into product management was outside my school, that makes me think that my degree or my program is not really helping me. But there is a really cool point over here. So, nanotechnology, right now, the biggest application of nanotechnology is going to be quantum computing. And quantum computing is going to change the world. Or I think change the world is a big thing because everybody has a different perspective of what their world looks like. But what I basically mean is that, like, quantum computing will enable a lot more computing, a lot more complex computing, and that is going to help a lot because let's say all the uh, on a very basic level, when we make vaccines, we need to create a lot, we need to try out a lot of alterations. We need to try a lot of, like, iterations or alterations of a chemical, what's going to work. So by using quantum computing and by running those complex simulations in such a fast format in parallel, that's going to be really that's going to be really a big breakthrough. So I think when quantum computing comes into or becomes a reality, I will have the advantage of understanding the foundations because I went through a really brutal course called quantum mechanics, the Schrodinger's equations and Heisenberg stuff. So those were those foundation tools that you need to understand what quantum computing is. And I feel that's going to be really valuable to me when it becomes a reality and when it's actually infused into industry. just like AI is being right now infused in every single product out there.
Okay, well, that's a really cool perspective to hear from, and no, I am definitely sure that quantum computing at least might become one of the the world's like basis in the future, especially in technology. So, but on another point, since we're talking so much about things that are really large scale, and I think it's a bit harder for students to relate. So is it okay with you if we go back to a smaller scale, say, topic, and just to get things started? So many young entrepreneurs in their young adult years, well, they often start enterprises at such a young age, right? Which is really great to see, especially nowadays. That they're like such a young generation starts to have idea and are really motivated to change the world, right? Um, and but sometimes they have difficulty in in what steps to take really to start off their venture. So do you have any advices for young people who would want to get involved in, say, social entrepreneurship, and where should they start?
Definitely. Okay, this is the question I think about myself every day, because you always need to start small. Whatever big vision you have, you always need to start small, and you need to start at a place where it really helps you in the form of compounding. So let's say, I'll give you an example first, and then I will dive into how I went about launching Billion Moonshots. So, I want to start my podcast because I've been writing so much on LinkedIn. I've been writing almost every weekday. I absolutely loved it. I would research for 1.5 hours and then would write it and polish it, post it on LinkedIn, on Medium, on my website. And I would have so much fun seeing the metrics rise every day and, sharing perspectives with my buddies. What happened now was I found that, okay, if I just sit down and research for 1.5 hour, I love that. I love reading it. But when I actually share with other people, I understand their perspective. That's beautiful. I would love to do that even more. So how do I scale that? The best way to scale that is getting on podcasts, because when you get on podcasts, they they know the motive of that conversation. Also, if you have more of such conversations, it actually lets other people know that, hey, this is the guy who will have this conversation with you, and you can jump on his podcast and actually have these conversations even more. So it's a good format to scale. Now, that's a very big goal, right? Like, getting some really insightful people on your conversations and talking about super cool stuff, just like Joe Rogan does right now, right? Like, he has millions of views on that. But how do I start? I had to start small. So, number one, I downloaded Anchor, which is a podcasting app. Number two, I bought my Blue Yeti, which Steven knows. And number three, I basically interviewed my cute little sister because I had to get started. I didn't want to wait to schedule and organize a podcast with someone who is super busy, who will take his time to trust me to have a good 1 hour conversation on a podcast. So, what I did, I got my little sister. And the best thing is that people love the cuteness. Cuteness is viral, just like a cat. Cat memes, cat pictures are viral. So, cuteness is viral. So, but the thing is, my sister, we spoke in Hindi, which is our mother language, mother tongue. So not a lot of my friends know understand Hindi, but they still tuned in and they are like, "Yo, we don't understand what she's saying, but she's so cute." So that was a this is a component that I used to start small on a vision that I have and kind of build a following. So that's my podcast. Now let's come to Billion Moonshots. Billion Moonshots is something.
Sorry to interrupt you. It's really interesting that you did something such an unexpected like turn of events, and you just brought your sister in, which is really special. I wanted to know, so definitely like it sounds like something cute, but like what kind of topics did you talk with her about?
With my sister.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, my uncle was like, "Hey, tell her to talk in English because she doesn't speak English a lot." So, I was practicing with her before, before the podcast that, hey, I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite vacation place? What's your favorite animal? Stuff like that. We were literally practicing a podcast. But then when it came time to actually record, I thought that no, I don't want to do this. I want to let it flow. So we just talked in Hindi because I knew she would be more natural in Hindi. And what we talked about was basically that day in the morning. What happened was me and all my cousins went for a walk in a garden, and we didn't take her because she wakes up a little bit late and she has her school. But we all don't have anything right now, so we all went early in the morning, and she was upset with me because of that. So I started the podcast from that note. I was like, hey, why were you upset with me today? And that's where we kind of like, the conversation just flew, and we talked about our favorite vacation place, which was Dubai. We talked about unicorns. We talked about how she saved our home from catching on fire, because literally, like, one day my mom just went to was sitting in her room. She was watching TV. She saw some smoke coming up in the kitchen, and then she went and knocked on the door, and she's like, Mama, like, something's happening." And then things got better. So yeah, like, just random fun stuff. So that's what I talked about.
Wow, it's really wholesome. It's really cool. It's really, it's really this like it gives us some joy. It's really cute. It's really cute. But yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. You can continue.
Right. Yeah. So we were talking about how do we start small, or how do we have actionable items to actually do things. Now, I always believe content is the best thing. Content is that small actionable item that you can always do. Now, that content could be a CTA, a call to action, or that content could be a general awareness. So for me, what I did was I watched a video. Like, I was watching a random video on YouTube which said that why aren't the smartest minds working on the world's biggest problems? And this entire YouTube video was about the fact that there's this one guy who basically he basically built 15 very durable, very good quality tents for homeless people, and he gave them to 15 homeless families. Now, what he says that what happened next was he got worldwide fame for doing that. And he's like, I didn't even do anything. That was such a small job. Like, I just built some tent and I gave it away and I clicked some pictures and I posted about it. We actually built a website, and he got worldwide fame. So, what he said was, it basically happened because nobody's doing this kind of things. This entire space of non-profit, of social, sorry, this entire space is what do we say is a what's that strategy word, that strategy, I think it's called blue water. It's a blue water, blue ocean, yeah, blue ocean. Blue ocean means that where there's not a lot of competition. And he's like, there's such a good opportunity for people to build a monopoly. Like, he talked even more into strategy, but I just think in that perspective, like, even if you do small little things that have really high impact, that actually impacts, that's what people value. So I came up with this idea that, okay, I want to do something similar, and I posted on LinkedIn that, hey guys, I watched this video, I loved it. I want to do something similar. Uh, I want to do something. That entire post was very vague. It was very random. But my CTA, my call to action was that, hey, join my community, which is something I built on Slack. Now that's it. I think that post got around 200 reactions on LinkedIn, and somewhere around 15 or 20,000 views, and around 70 people joined my community that day. And now I had no idea what to do, because I was like, wait, this was just a random idea I thought about, but I have no idea what to do. So now every hour I'm just thinking about this, that, okay, what do we actually do now? So the first idea that came to my mind was, we will basically pick up the areas or the problems that have been defined by UN, which is also called UN Sustainable Goals. There are 17 of them, and we picked up eight. We picked up eight. These were hunger, health, unemployment, climate change, so four more. And what we did was, I basically created these eight Slack channels within a Slack workspace. And I again, like I asked my community that, hey, who would want to be a lead for that particular problem? So again, eight people said that we want to be a lead. Now they were the lead, and now the plan was that basically they will form a team within themselves around one problem, let's say hunger. They will brainstorm ideas and they will go ahead and build a product for that one problem. That was the idea. But soon, within a few days, I figured that, hey, this is not going to work. Why? Because I don't really want people to focus on only building one solution, because these kind of big problems need a ton of solutions. We need to basically throw solutions on the wall and see what sticks. So that's the strategy that we have to go to. And also, I remember I had a conversation with the director of Microsoft Research Lab, which is in Montreal, Mohammed Wasba. And he basically told me this, that, hey, let 100 flowers bloom, which is the exact strategy that any VC goes about. That, hey, we invest in a ton of startups and let's see which one actually comes up and returns us phenomenal profits. So similarly, we had to invest in a lot of solutions and see which one turns out to be the best solution, which one actually turns out to impact the most. So now that was my goal. And now the small actionable item was for me that, okay, how do I make sure that I let 100 flowers bloom? So the smallest thing I could think about is hosting a case competition, a 2 day, super short time commitment case competition where people can jump in, understand the problem deeper, and propose a solution. Not even build a solution, just propose a solution. And that's what I thought, that, hey, let's use that as our pivot. Let's use that as the first entry point. And how I've designed Billion Moonshots right now is the fact that, okay, we will first have a case competition. Through this case competition, people will be having super short time commitment. They will jump in. They will be like, okay, let's try this out for just 2 days. Well, it's just 2 days. So they will jump in, they will think about the problem, they will propose a solution. Now what we do is we pick the top three winners and we invite them to enter our accelerator program. What happens next is, these people, they just propose a solution based on some facts, or based on some based on some insights that they might have got through Google. And what we want to do now is we want to basically connect them with people who are doing the real groundwork, the charities, the organizations who are doing the real groundwork, and help them, provide them the real insights and build a viable social enterprise. So that's the entire journey I want to go through with Billion Moonshots. But to your question, that what are those small steps? For me, those small steps were content, always generating awareness, always having call to action, and number two was a case competition. And we are having our first case competition in the fall, so super excited for that. That was a super long answer, but I think this question needed a super long answer, a clear answer.
Definitely, definitely. It was definitely comprehensive. I think you covered pretty much all the points that need to be covered. But it's really awesome to hear that you have such, a concrete, detailed plan for doing moonshots, which is really awesome to hear about. Just to make it a bit clearer for all, so is Brilliant Moonshot more of so that's more of like a VC type of a community that invests in startups, or are you like a once in a year conference that happens or competition that happens that then helps a bunch of startups accelerate grow? What exactly is a billion moonshots? As a venture.
Definitely. Okay, so to clarify that, basically, right now we are a non-profit accelerator. That doesn't mean that we are actually
Okay.
investing in startups. We are not a VC. And the kind of approach I'm going through is right now not actually inviting people who already have a startup. The only way to enter our accelerator program is through the case competition. You have to participate in the case competition, you have to propose a solution, you have to win, and only then, if you win, we will invite you to our accelerator program. The goal over here is the fact that there is a right now people look at it as a binary thing. There are for-profit companies who are generating a ton of economic value, where Wall Street, sorry, not Wall Street Journal, but Wall Street is constantly assessing their values, their revenues, and stuff like that. And on the other spectrum, on the other end, there is the non-profit, which are charities, which are only doing things for social value. They are not generating any economic value. They are totally relied on donations. I really want to. I really want to. What my goal with Billion Moonshots is to help people explore the middle more. The middle is social enterprises, where you are doing for-profit work, but you are doing good. You are doing it. You're creating social value with it, and that's the goal over here. And how do I encourage people to explore social enterprises more? The best way is to, number one, awareness, highlight the problems, because literally right now people think that, hey, I have Netflix, I have HBO, but I don't have an app that is very customized to phone. Wow, voila, let's create Quibi. So if you heard of Quibi, Quibi is a new streaming service that popped up, and I believe that the world doesn't need another social media app or streaming service. It needs another social enterprise. So if we provide more such avenues for people to explore or encourage them to create social enterprises, think more about this, only then we will come about such innovative solutions or such creative solutions. Because I understand that. Like I understand, like, when I was in Canada, when I was in US, we have first world problems over there. We have first world problems, right? And that makes us think always about first world solutions, but we have never heard about the third world problems. Like people right now don't even have food to eat. People are drinking bad water, really bad water filled with leeches and from swamps. That's the reality of third world countries. So what we really want is, we really want to ensure that the world, or not even the world, people are working. They are putting their energy towards the right problems, the problems that are going to have the most impact. So that's what my thought process is.
Well, that's really inspiring to hear, and I kind of agree with you that, a lot of businesses, especially those for profits, are really focused on first world issues, right? So if I give an example like Netflix, right, who provides a avenue for like entertainment, we do not really, I think the population is not really um, aware, or at least not thinking constantly about what, the poorest communities around the world are living through, which they already have taken as granted, basically. But
Totally.
it's interesting that, you're trying so to help, um, you know, not necessarily NPOs, but for-profit businesses, to make good for this world. So on this topic, if we go back to a more general question, I want to ask you. So what's a social entrepreneur for you? What's social entrepreneurship in general? How do you see it? And could you give us some insight about your thoughts?
Oh yeah, totally. So just like I mentioned, right? Like there's a spectrum. On one end, there is for-profit companies who are generating economic value. On the other end, there are charities who are generating social value. The for-profit
Yeah.
companies, they only care about revenue. They only care about I shouldn't say that they only care about profits or revenue. They are doing good, but they are not. They have this concept of giving back. They have this concept of giving back. Like Microsoft has this thing where Microsoft is spending, let's say, $1 billion or $10 billion on climate change, but that's not where the entire effort is going after. On the non-profit side, there are charities, there are organizations who are strapped with money, like who don't get a lot of donations, whose UI, whose branding is not that good. Like there was a quote one day, like the supply chain of toothpaste is way better than food, which basically, like what that basically meant was, like, because toothpaste is a commercialized business, because in a commercialized business they don't hire people based on the mission, they hire people based on how qualified, how good they are. This means that they are constantly looking to do better, they're constantly looking to make things better, they're constantly looking to optimize the little inefficiencies, and that has made uh, the toothpaste supply chain so good. But on the other hand, Like, charities are people who are basically charities are people who have a mission, who have a vision for their life, that they want to help these people, they want to do these things, and they're only trying to look for people who actually accept those visions, who also think in that frame of mind. But they necessarily are not the best people in their job, and they are necessarily not the best technologists who can build scalable solutions. Their work is only limited to geography. They cannot be scaled globally. And also, like, if you think about, like, donations, not a lot of people trust charities right now. I think there was a survey in US which said that 70% or 60% people wouldn't pay to a charity, wouldn't donate to a charity, just because they think the money actually doesn't end up in the hands of people who really need it. So there's a distrust over there. So this is what I'm talking about, both the sides of the world. So what is a social entrepreneur? A social entrepreneur is someone who basically builds scalable solutions, who basically leverages all the emerging technologies, all the efficiencies from the Silicon Valley world, and applies it to these humanity's biggest problems. So that's what I define as a social entrepreneur, and that's what I believe social entrepreneur is. Because I don't think there is a crisp definition on a dictionary which says that, hey, what is a social entrepreneur? Like, define it. It has to have certain criteria. I think, like, let's say even LinkedIn. LinkedIn right now is aiming at all the professionals. LinkedIn is only aiming to generate economic opportunity, or create economic opportunity for 3.7 billion professionals, somewhere around that. They are not aiming at creating economic opportunities for the entire 7 billion population. What does that mean? That means that LinkedIn is only focusing on professionals right now, but also the fact that when the time comes, LinkedIn would have the most potential to actually expand the customer segment, and LinkedIn would have the foundational resources and the connection and the leverage to actually enter that market. So this is what I really want. Like, how do we actually take the technology, take the foundation from the big companies, learn from them the business fundamentals, and apply it to these world's biggest problems, these humanity's biggest problems? Yeah, that's
Wow,
what.
I think a really innovative way of thinking actually, and it's really interesting that you're thinking about social entrepreneurship as like the intersection between both like traditional enterprises be able to self-sustain, but also develop on products and on their knowledge and whatnot, and social ventures like NPOs who really want to bring social good in general and help solve the world's current pressing issues. So I think like you said, there's no like definite definition for social entrepreneurship, but I think it's a really valid one. So thank you
Def-
for sharing your insight with us about entrepreneurship. Um, but now, if we move on, so you talked about taking some specific you look at the UN list of current problems that exist in this world, and you took eight of them you mentioned. Like for a social entrepreneur just starting now, or say just someone who's at your eventual petition, towards which specific areas of
Definitely. Okay, this is something that I have been thinking about recently. First of all, I just want to mention that I recently got into this. I recently built a billion moonshots because I believe in billion moonshots, because I believe in change. Someone who I'm always looking out to admire is Scott Harrison. He started Charity Water, and definitely check that out. Charity Water is an organization that is a perfect example of social entrepreneurship done right, because they are leveraging the exactly as I said, they're leveraging the best foundation, the leverage from the startup world, from the business world, and putting it towards solving water crisis, putting it towards solving clean water. in every household. So definitely check that out. And also, like, they are trying to work on the good sides, or they are trying to work on the customer acquisition side. Like, how do we create some innovative marketing campaigns, and how do we make sure our branding and marketing is right? Because none of the charities have the resources to actually put towards creating a brand. They only focus on the work, but they don't actually focus on building a brand, so that people can feel as if their donations are going to the right place. So, like, there's a lot about branding that Charity Water does right. Now, coming back to your question, that what are these big problems? I like to divide this into two areas. Number one is the ability for everyone to dream, and number two is the ability to everyone to go after their dream. So I have kind of made it super basic for myself because it helps me understanding. Now, when I say the ability to dream, that means that, imagine today you and me, we both will be going to bed and we both will be dreaming about something because we have the ability to dream. There are people who go to bed hungry. There are people who are unhealthy. There are people who don't get good water. There are people who are, like, so many things. They are hungry. They are not having good clean water, and they are not healthy. They are not getting the right health uh, service that they should be getting. So because of all these three things, they are not even able to dream. They are under poverty. Like, poverty is also a big thing. Like, when you are poor, when you are around other people, you are poor, that becomes your reality. Like, you then don't dream. You just think that this is it, we are supposed to be in this social status. So that's the first stage, the giving them the ability to dream. And number two is giving them the ability to go after their dream. So when I say go after their dream, this is where opportunities come. Like, once you have solved for hunger, health, and poverty and water, after that comes unemployment. Now you have to solve for unemployment and social justice and inequality, because a lot of girls are not being able to work because uh, they are thought to be only they are only supposed to be in kitchens. That's what the orthodox mind says. And then comes unemployment. Not a lot of places, rural areas, have the right opportunity. And the other thing is also education. Let's think about India. In India, a lot of rural areas don't even have proper internet connection. They don't even have proper phones. They have feature phones where you can only call. That's it. I'm not even sure if people in my friends in Canada or US know what a feature phone is. It's just a chunk of plastic with numbers on it and a small screen where you can only play snakes and ladder. That's all you can do, and only see a number being typed. Like, that's it. And that's what people have over here. So what I'm also excited about, like, recently Google and Geo partnered up to basically build low cost, affordable, entry level smartphones for these rural people. Because even the least expensive phones right now, which come from China, which are made in China, they are still too expensive for the rural India. So Google and Geo are partnering up to make even cheaper smartphones. And I really believe that is gonna, that is gonna be an entry point for rural India to actually get on the internet and learn from all the free resources and all the wealth of information available online. Just like this, like, we are recording this right now online. And imagine someone who doesn't even have a phone. How would they find these kind of valuable conversations, all the work that this organization is doing for you? So yeah, I know I went a bit on the tangent, but this is how I divide my thought process. Like, number one, ability to dream, and number two, ability to go after your dream. So when I say ability to dream, things like hunger, poverty, water, and health comes over there. And when I think about ability to go after your dream, education, unemployment, and inequality comes into there. So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. Well, I think it's pretty simple, but it resumes pretty much the different levels and thought process and actions we take to really answer to these problems. So definitely really, really insightful. Um, but you talked about burner phones, right? Which is really interesting since like I don't even think my generation like had ever seen one in their lives. And definitely like I can't even imagine what these people under such circumstances, especially like you mentioned in rural areas in India, for example, are living through like every day in their lives. So it's really awesome to hear about your projects, your ambition towards helping the world and have just a better environment for everyone. And so on that topic now, since you've talked about the current problems and given a description about it, I know you mentioned some companies like Google who are working to build even cheaper phones for the rural areas. But what are some innovative ways that some groups or organizations are taking nowadays to solve these problems? Or do you have any insights on potential avenues we should go towards to help the world?
Definitely. So basically, when I started Billion Moonshots, as I mentioned, my first focus was content, because content is that small action, is that small step where you can get things going easily. It could be a CTA or it could be a simple awareness post. And I posted on LinkedIn about blockchain for hunger. The goal with Billion Moonshots is to obviously build scalable solutions. To we don't want to encourage people that, hey, build a social enterprise by starting a company that dig wells in Africa, because that's not sustainable. So how can we think about more innovative ways how we can build scalable solutions? So one of these solutions was blockchain for hunger, a post that I wrote, I think, a month ago. And basically, what happened over here was it's a really cool solution. So I will start from the very background. Like when you think about hunger, hunger is not a problem of food. There, we basically produce enough food to feed 10 billion people, even though we are just 7.8 billion. And still, 800 million people are going to bed hungry every day. Imagine what's happening over here. We produce enough food for 10 billion people, even though we are just 7.8 billion, and still 800 million people are going to bed hungry every single day. The problem over here is of supply chain and food wastage. It's not a problem of food. If we create an organization that is basically going out and giving food to people, that's not going to solve hunger. What we need to solve is supply chain and food wastage. Why is 30%, why is one third of the food we produce is being wasted? That's such a big waste. That's so many tons of food being wasted that is being grown by farmers, right? So we have to think about innovative ways how to solve this problem. Now, what one organization, World Food Program, which is by UN, did is they basically thought that, hey, it's obvious that if we are gonna basically create a place where we bring a lot of food, we cook a lot of food, and then we offer a lot of food to other people, to refugees, to people who are hungry, that's not a scalable solution. So what do? They implemented blockchain. So what basically happens over here is that they basically started this as a pilot program in a refugee camp in Jordan. Now, what happens in a refugee camp? In a refugee camp, there are people who fled their homes. There are people who fled their homes because they were uh, either they were at war or they just thought that it's not the right place to live at. And now, when they are in this new country, they don't have the right documents. They don't have a good identity. They don't have any identity, I should say, because they don't have any proof of their qualifications, their education, their bank account details and stuff like that. And in many countries you cannot even, open, you cannot even work if you don't have a bank account. So that's the kind of situation these refugees in Jordan were. So what World Food Program did is they basically set up a blockchain that basically gave these people money in the form of Ethereum coins. Now, what happens over here is that World Food Program basically gives has created this blockchain. They give money. They give a set amount of money to these refugees through Ethereum coins in the form of Ethereum coins. It's not real cash. And now what happens is that they can basically go to any local grocery store over there in the community, and after they buy whatever they want, all they have to do at the checkout is they want to lift up their head and scan their iris. That's it, and that's how they pay. Now, this is solving a lot of problems. Number one, it's solving for identity. Right now, their identity, which is always going to be theirs only, is iris. And that makes sense. Your fingerprint, your iris, these are some things that are only going to be one out of all the human beings. So it's only yours. Nobody can copy it. So that's a good identity to rely this foundation on. Number two, it's blockchain, which basically means that blockchain ensures that there's transparency, which means that if World Food Program supposedly gives billions of dollars or millions of dollars to some people to say that, okay, you guys go and make sure everybody gets food in the refugee camp, there might be chances of corruption. There might be some chances of overspending or not spending in the right form, and the actual money not reaching to the people who are in need. So blockchain ensures transparency. This makes sure that people get their money, and there is also validation. There's a proper system. People know where the money is at. So that's blockchain. And number three, it's also growing the local economy, because basically now instead of providing the food, you are boosting the local economy by actually putting in money into those grocery stores, into those local grocery stores. So these are all the ways how, like, this particular solution is creatively, innovatively solving for hunger. Now again, this was just a pilot program and they are planning to scale it up, but there are still some what do we say, there are still some things that we need to think about, some concerns that might come up. I'm not aware of everything over here, but definitely we need to think about these kind of solutions which are scalable, which could be easily scaled globally, not solutions where you have really optimized for one geography, you're really optimized for a really small area, but when time comes to scale, you cannot because you don't have enough resources. So that's one innovative solution.
Okay, okay, wow. I mean, it's really insightful that such an organization conducted such an experiment. I think it should be at least, even if it's not scalable, a basis or thinking for what the future could look like, and possible solutions we could bring up, possible solutions, but also scalable solutions that we should think about to really help these people out, basically. And I'm just curious,
Definitely.
what was the outcome of the experiment? Did it work out well?
Yep, it did work out well. I was reading about it, and I think they started this from a pilot program in Pakistan. Over there, it worked really well. Then they moved to Jordan. Now it's working even better. And because they have got even more people under the program, I think they have around 50,000 people. But I'm not really aware about their next steps. But definitely, it is working out. They're definitely scaling a lot.
Okay, well, that's really awesome to hear. And you described it as, like scanning the iris, having Ethereum coins. It seems like something really futuristic, right? Do you think it could be a possible future we could envisage, or do you have any other ideas or things you would add on? Like, what's your vision in general for social entrepreneurship in the future?
Definitely, like that's a good question, right? So, exactly as I said, let 100 flowers bloom. So, what we want is we want to think more about these first world problems. When we think more about, sorry, we need to think more about these third world problems. When we think more about the first world problems, we are going to come up with first world solutions. If we think more about third world problems, we're going to come up with third world solutions, or first world solutions that are better at third world problems. So, like, basically what I want, what my vision is to enable the people who have a great foundation, who are well able, who are secure, in, let's say, the richest countries, America, Canada, UK, to think about problems which are being faced by the third world countries. Because even even for me today to think about these things, I need to be secure about other things. So right now I'm an intern. I work as a full-time I work as a full-time job as an intern, but I'm not a full-time role, but I work 40 hours a week as a technical product manager. That is already a role that is very exhausting. And what I do is I take out my weekends. I take out every single an hour every single weekday and the weekends to work on billion moonshots. So I definitely need a foundation for myself which could pay my bills, which where I could feel secure to think about others, to think about social entrepreneurship. So I don't we shouldn't expect third world countries to think about third world problems, or we shouldn't let me reframe this. We shouldn't expect third world countries to solve their problems. We should expect people who are really who are, I shouldn't say rich, but who have got the resources, people who have got a good foundation to help these people solve their problems. Because obviously these guys don't even have enough resources. They don't even have a phone to look to search up on Google. How can they how can they help everybody? They can only help themselves. They will only think about themselves. What we want is more people who are secure in their position and help others. So that's the goal with billion moonshots. And again, like, when these people when people who uh, when people think more about these problems, the third world problems, they would give it a shot. They would try a lot of things, maybe blockchain, maybe quantum computing, maybe some genomic stuff, and maybe 100 things might not work, maybe 99 things might not work, but we only need one thing to work. And if that one thing works, we can scale it globally. So that's what we want. We want to let 100 flowers bloom, throw a lot of things on the wall, and see what sticks. But yeah, it all starts from the fact that we want to encourage more people to think about these problems.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with you. I hear, first, like, definitely first world countries have definitely more resources, not only in terms of, money, but also workforce and also education, right? And, usually when you're surrounded with problems, you can't solve it yourself. You need like an external maybe force to analyze it for you and help you out with it. So, and about the point you brought up, about first sustaining themselves and then being able to help others, right? Have more people like that. I think it's definitely, um, a plausible theory because, like it applies that in everything in life, basically. Like before helping others, you take care of yourself, right? And make sure you're okay in your current position and that you have the resources to be able to help others. So
Yeah,
definitely really
totally.
insightful, Prashant. Thank you for that. Um, And as a last question to end the segment, I think it was a really fruitful conversation. Covered a lot of topics, and definitely I think your vision is really, really insightful, and I'm sure it could bring, building moonshots especially could bring really good input to the world for the future. And I really look forward for the venture to grow into something that's scalable and recognized in the world. So just to end things up, so any resources or um, programs that viewers or current viewers consult, uh, to really involve themselves into helping others, not donating money, but taking concrete actions. Do you have any resources or programs they could take part in Canada or internationally?
That's a great question because I've been looking for these kind of programs. I've been looking for these kind of resources. I think there are some really good TEDx talks on social entrepreneurship that is really gonna help. And number two thing is, I would say that, hey, follow Billion Moonshots on LinkedIn. Follow the Billion Moonshots LinkedIn page. And also, if you are looking
for
into
sure.
creating more content about social entrepreneurship, we are always looking for people to build that content machine where we are actually churning out more content about helping others know about these big problems, because right now people know that hunger exists, people don't know how to solve it. And if we can provide more insight into these kind of things, that hey, it's a food wastage problem, the simplest thing you could do is you can create an IoT sensor for your refrigerator, so that your and you can create an entire machine, like you can create an entire ecosystem where an IoT sensor or a smart refrigerator can tell you that, hey, this is all the food you have. It can create recipes based on, or it can recommend you recipes based on the food available, so that you don't have to throw anything, you don't waste anything. It also automatically, automatically orders food through Instacart or some kind of integration, so that by understanding your behavior, so that you don't buy extra, you don't buy extra stuff that could potentially waste. So yeah, what we really want is create awareness. And in terms of resources, I think that Charity Water is amazing. Definitely follow Charity Water and look at their, like, sign up for the email newsletter, because that's where you will find some really insightful stories. And definitely, follow Billion Moonshots LinkedIn page.
Definitely, I'll definitely take a look into that. It really inspires me, and I really want to take concrete actions. So definitely, I'll go check it out, and I recommend you viewers as well. You know, um, uh, really go gain knowledge about it, and then think about yourself first, and what how you could sustain yourself, and then take concrete actions, um, and think about what are the most pressing issues, what problems exist in this planet, how is it affecting people, and really think about innovative solutions. Not just spending money on charities, not just simply like producing more food, like you said, which won't solve necessarily the problem. Really think deeply about the facts. So, really, thank you, Mr. Bach. Thank you, Prashant. And we're currently 1:07 now, and we have about 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A. So I'm gonna open up the floor to it. Steven, do you have any questions for Prashant?
Well, first of all, thank you a lot for that conversation. I know I didn't turn on my webcam. Sorry about that. I was eating a bit, and I don't want to show my face. Um, but yeah, I mean, in terms of questions, I mean, Zex, you asked so many questions, and it pretty much covered everything. I don't have honestly, I don't have a question on the spot right now. So yeah. In terms of from our viewers, I don't think anyone has asked any questions so far. So I think for today, it will be enough, and we can wrap it up.
All right, all right, it sounds good. On my side, like Steven said, I've pretty much exhausted my list of questions, but definitely there's a lot more research to be done on the topic, and definitely more exploration to do. Especially on the third world issues that we are aware of, but not necessarily think about. So thank you, Prashant, for coming today. And do you have any last words for viewers?
Last words for viewers. So, I okay, this is a crazy idea, and I want to put it out there that how I see the future is that people don't actually donate money. Some really smart people donate their expertise to build scalable solutions. So that's how I see. And I hope Billion Moonshots turn out to be that way, where we create a platform where people actually donate their expertise. They could be the best data scientists out there, they could be the best software engineers and product managers out there, and they donate, let's say, 1 hour, 1 weekend, stuff like that, like time, a commitment like that, to build scalable solution. So that's what I believe, because we need an amalgamation of industry knowledge to solve these big problems, because industry is good at optimizing, it's good at efficiency, and we need to bring that back to real problems that we have.
That's a really, really beautiful motive. And, I'm really in this with you and really hope that, our workforce in the future will not only, work on problems to sustain themselves or to help a certain company grow, but they actually devote some of their time to solve these pressing issues and help the others that are currently in need. So thank you a lot, Prashant. I hope you have a great day. I wish you the best of luck and of success in your projects. Definitely put in moonshots with all the details you've talked about. And your vision, I think it has a lot of potential to contribute to this world.
Thank you so
So thank you
much.
for coming.
So glad to be here.
Of course, we're equally